Hello, and welcome to The Magic of Neuroplasticity. I'm Samantha of Learning Success, and I'll be your host for this video series. Scientists used to think that the brain did not change. Fortunately, that has been absolutely disproven. Unfortunately, the belief still seems to hang around, and it's a very terrible and very damaging belief. This video is part of an initiative to try and dispel that belief so that today's children will have a brighter future. In this series, we present stories from people who have actually seen neuroplasticity in action. In this video, we have Marilyn Abramson. Marilyn has been a speech-language pathologist for 34 years. She is an Amen Clinic certified brain health coach and cognitive career coach, and owner and founder of Marilyn Abramson, LLC. Marilyn is the creator of Long Live Your Brain, an online 12-week brain healthy lifestyle transformation program. This program teaches people how to fire back up memory and thinking skills while reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia with modifiable lifestyle choices and use of functional memory strategies.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Abramson. I am an Amen Clinic certified brain health coach and a cognitive career coach. And for the past 34 years, I've also worked as a speech-language pathologist in a hospital setting, working with patients who've had strokes and brain injuries. And I'd like to tell you my neuroplasticity story today. If I was asked to define the word neuroplasticity, I'd say it's formally defined as the brain's ability to adapt and change in response to new learning and experiences. But if I could define it in one word, I'd define it as the word hope. I believe that neuroplasticity has changed who I am as a therapist over the years. There was a time before neuroplasticity was even part of the conversation that I might have discharged a patient that appeared to reach a plateau. But today, understanding it and how it works, I'd keep treating that patient, adapting my treatment, and the patient's personal involved in his or her own treatment a little differently. I have a greater understanding now of the importance of intense repetition, of intensive practice. I mean, if we're building new neural pathways in the brain, then it takes intense repetition to get there. And for patients who are able to participate, I also educate them now on how they can increase their own neuroplasticity just by changing some lifestyle choices. There is a chemical that is released into the brain that's like nourishment. It's like brain food. It's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. BDNF facilitates plasticity in the brain, and we have the power to increase it. BDNF is increased with exercise, particularly aerobic exercise. It's increased with new learning and intellectual challenge. And it's also increased by changing up routines, like taking different routes to familiar places, or even by rearranging items on your desk. So you're basically keeping your brain switched on during the day rather than on autopilot. It keeps you thinking. Well, imagine that in 34 years, I've got hundreds of examples that I can give you of patients who've demonstrated amazing neuroplastic changes. So I just thought I would just tell you about my most recent patient. He was a stroke patient, about 54 years old. And when he first came into my office at the hospital for his evaluation, I couldn't really tell why he was there. He was walking and talking perfectly. But a little while into the evaluation, I realized he did have some cognitive problems, like issues with memory and problem solving, things like that. So I put him on therapy, started to work with him. But as time went on, I realized that he had a far greater problem. And that was that he had something called pure word blindness. His vision was fine, aside from some visual perceptual issues, which were actually part of the problem, but his vision was functional overall. And he could identify single letters with about 60 to 70% accuracy, but once two or more letters were put together to form a word, it was complete gibberish to him. He couldn't even read the word the, although he could identify each individual letter, THE. Worse, he was an accomplished pianist by trade and could only now play musical pieces that he knew by heart before the stroke. he couldn't read music anymore, and this was particularly devastating to him. So we worked. I started him on single words, but I could not get past that no matter how much we worked together. And this went on for quite a while, but he made no progress beyond identifying individual letters. Now, without knowledge of neuroplasticity, I would have discharged him at that point, believing that he had achieved his maximum rehab potential. But I decided to try to reteach reading to him in a different way. First, I educated him on how to increase the release of his own BDNF with exercise and changing of routine and new learning. I asked him to choose a new piece of music and try to learn that at home, even though I knew it was going to be a struggle, but I just wanted him to have the mental challenge. Then, knowing that he could identify letters, I started with 3- and 4-letter words, and I asked him to say the letters out loud. And then when he said the letters out loud, I realized that he could recognize the word. This was a skill that he could do. So we discovered that he couldn't read through his visual pathways, but his auditory pathways were intact, and he still had the ability to identify a word just by spelling it out. THE was the. BALL was ball. So by saying the letters aloud, he was able to read. And it was slow at first, but with time, he started doing it with more speed and functionality. And he did this with the notes on his music, his sheet music as well. So in a sense, we used the auditory pathways to learn how to perform a visual task, sight reading. This involved developing pathways that were associated with a visual skill and developing them in a part of the brain that's usually reserved for auditory skills. That is adaptation. That's neuroplasticity in action. So I am so happy to be able to tell you this story, because these are the stories that give me hope for my patients and for my clients. And that's my story.
Thank you, Marilyn, for telling your personal story of neuroplasticity. We hope this inspires you to make the most of your own and your child's cognitive development, because brains do change, and those that continually work to improve their own brain can reap tremendous rewards. You are not stuck with the brain that you were born with. If you found this video helpful, please share it and use the hashtag MON, Magic of Neuroplasticity. Thanks for watching and sharing. In case no one has told you yet today, the fact that you are watching this means you're an amazing parent. I appreciate you for showing up and doing the work it takes to embrace your child's brilliance and unleash their true potential.